Hi, good evening. Welcome to season 2, episode 2. Today, with these three lovely ladies, Shahnaz, Nirali, and Prerna, we're going to speak about today's youth, the leaders of tomorrow. There's no doubt in my mind that each of them, in their personal capacities and their professional capacities, are the leaders that we have to look out for in the tomorrow. Welcome, Shahnaz, Nirali, and Prerna. Shahnaz is a second year student of finance and accounting at the University of Nottingham. She's born in India and brought up in Kuwait. She's a CBSE topper who enjoys reading, meditation, travel, and research. Inspired by her father in her interest in finance and business peaked, and that's why she's chosen this line as a career path. She has interned with Deloitte in Kuwait and has been an audit associate with PricewaterhouseCoopers at London. She's currently an understudy in public accounting, but her goal is to start her own practice in taxation and accounting. She loves music, she loves eating, and she loves animals. She desires, eventually, to contribute to animal welfare in the long run. Currently, she is in Kuwait. Due to the pandemic, she just came down a couple of weeks ago. She managed to. She's fine, she's safe. And in 2 days from now, she's taking a flight back to London. Thank you, Shahnaz, for doing this. Delighted to have you here. Nirali is a final year student in BSc in Hospitality from the Sheila Raheja Institute of Hotel Management. She's eagerly awaiting to graduate. She's drawn to the services industry inspired by both her parents. Nirali has trained at the Oberoi Mumbai and the Trident at the Bandra Kurla complex, and she has been felicitated as the most well-groomed trainee. At campus interviews, she's bagged the most offers from her college, but she has embraced the unpredictability and is now pursuing her MBA entrance exams. What a smart move, Nirali. Good choice. An integral part of her college social media team that she is, she also pens her thoughts on Instagram under the hashtag #ItIsSurreal. For those of you who haven't known of her or her handle, please do visit it. It's pretty intriguing, interesting, and a wonderful piece of work that she does. During the lockdown, Nirali has organized a fundraiser, which is basically a bake sale for the needy, and quoting Shakespeare that she often does, she realized soon that sweet are the uses of adversity. So Nirali, after this, I'm going to call you up and ask you what that means. You'll have to train me because I had Merchant of Venice in my ICSE, and I don't remember anything of that, but I don't know where this is from, but I will catch up with you on that. Welcome, Nirali. Prerna, welcome. She's a graduate, a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from the Flame University. She's currently interning with a mental health services organization, and she's also enrolled for a 1-year diploma in counseling. She's an animal lover, and she aspires to be an animal-assisted therapist. With her degree in psychology and her professional training in the animal-assisted therapy, she desires to provide counseling for pet parents. Her goal has always been to be of help always in whatever small way that she can. She's fond of food, music, friends, and family, not necessarily in that order. All of these make her very, very happy. Being with dogs makes her ecstatic. And to add to her joy and making his online webinar debut is her pet, Hershey Mohan. Welcome, Prerna. I had to do this. It make you happy. It makes me happy as well. So delighted to have you and Hershey on screen, at least for now. Last but not the least, greedy little me. I'm sharing the next episode, which is on Thursday. Take a snapshot. The bit.ly link is there. I'm going to be speaking with these three gentlemen on entertainment, media, marketing, and technology, the digital future. It's at 5 p.m. coming Thursday. And with that, I'm going to switch off the PPT. I'm going to request the panelists to put their audio video on. Thank you. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Nirali. Hi, Shanaz.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Quick. I'm doing well. And all of you are looking very pretty and poised
Thank
and
Thank you
relaxed.
so much.
Thank you.
So are you?
Thank you very much. Okay, very quickly, one by one, quick hello to the audience so they can see your faces. Say hi to them and also tell them a little bit about yourself that I have missed out. Very, very quickly. Prerna, Nirali, and Shanaz in that order.
Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Prerna Mohan, and I'm an aspiring animal-assisted therapist. Satyanarkan, I'm really glad that you included Hershey in my introduction because he's the reason that I wanted to become an animal-assisted therapist. And yeah, I'm really glad to be here, and I'm so glad that you all are here to hear us speak. I'm very honored. That's basically it.
Thank you, Prerna.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nirali Majmudar. I'm so glad to be here and sharing the screen with all three of y'all. I genuinely love having conversations and talking, and hence this was an excuse to do that. And I think you said everything about me in the introduction, and I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shana's engineer. I'm an inspiring chartered accountant, and I'm so honored to be on this talk show. Thank you so much for asking me. I've seen a lot of your episodes, and they're all so great, and thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. That was very sweet. So one quick thing, just chill and relax. Okay, think you are in your canteens and you're chatting with your friends. Don't look at the camera. Look at one of us in the pictures. So don't get conscious on that. Okay, audience, for some of you who are new to this session of mine, this is a restricted chat. So you have a Q&A section where you can put your questions to the panelists and to me. It's restricted to only the four of us viewing. I will take up the questions as and when appropriate. Pratibha, hi. All of you raising your hands. In my candid conversations, raising a hand means you're saying hi. So we are waving back at you, Harsha, Ahuja, and everybody else. Thank you. Keep waving. And we will please accept our waves back. Great. So I'm going to start asking very simple questions to all of you. All right. Shanas, first one goes out to you. What was so important that made you make a choice about taxation and accounting, and why did you choose the university that you've chosen?
Taxation and accounting came quite late on, but when I was around 15, I think my interest in business sort of peaked. It's all mainly because of my dad, honestly. He's in the field. So I knew I had to take commerce in 12th grade. And while I was doing my 11th and 12th in commerce, I really liked accounting. I read a little bit more about finance and I was a lot more interested. I was also interested in business, but I did sort of want to do finance as such. And I thought if I want to do finance and accounting, obviously I should go for the best professional course out there, which is chartered accountancy. And the university that I've chosen is University of Nottingham, and I've chosen it because it's got a course with PwC, which is called the Flying Start course, where I can do my internship and my placement with PwC. So that's why I chose this university. It's just a really, it's a foot in, it's a quick foot in into the profession. And yeah, that's basically it. And while studying for chartered accountancy, as of now, I quite like taxation. I don't know, I might change my mind later on. I'm not quite sure, but right now I like taxation a lot. So let's see how it goes.
Great, thank you, and wish you all the best. Nirali?
Thank you.
Yes.
Same question for you.
So I have always seen my parents, seen all of y'all do so much in life, and always been very, very fascinated with the hospitality industry. When I walked into the college I am graduating from, I just knew I wanted to be there. It just looked very nice, and the placements and everything, it just seemed extremely nice. I am more of an instinct person, so it was just my instinct, and I just felt like I belonged there. So I started with not a lot of expectations. I've always been somebody who does not think very highly of myself. So I don't overestimate, I'm underestimating myself usually. So, but in these 3 years, I've seen myself grow, and in a way where I thought it was impossible for me to do it. I interned at the Oberoi Mumbai, and that changed my life as a person, and I fell in love with the industry even more. Since then, I wanted to manage a hotel and be a general manager of the hotel. And I think let's hope I can still do that. That's all.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. You are at a very nascent stage, but you're in the right industry. I have to ask you this: with all that's going around in the hospitality industry now, and with the uncertainty that is there, which is probably going to last for a little longer than all of us expected,
Yes.
do you still want to be in the industry?
Like I said, I am extremely in love with the industry. I chose MBA right now because it just makes sense. It's more practical to get to myself, to upskill myself, to get myself a degree. And also, I don't have to bother studying after a few years eventually, because I do not want monotony in my life. And it just makes sense right now. But what I realized, and when I spoke to so many people around me, I realized that I can get into the industry even after doing an MBA. So I don't think I'm leaving the industry ever, but it's just a break right now.
Good. Thank you. Prerna?
So I started being interested in psychology when I was like 13. That's the first time I heard of like what exactly therapists or counselors do. But even though I was really interested in it, I didn't know what in psychology, like what type of counseling or which group of people I wanted to counsel. And then I actually took a gap year before going to college. So I spent a lot of time just with myself, honestly. And I realized that even at my lowest points, the thing that makes me most happy is being around animals, especially my dog Hershey. And you would know how good he can make you feel. But yeah, so spending a lot of time with him made me realize that that was something that I wanted to focus on. But I've also volunteered at an animal shelter, and I realized that doing just animal-based work or taking care of injured and sick animals is not something I can handle. So then one day I heard of this concept of animal-assisted therapy, which is basically animals being the therapist's partner in the therapy process. So it's anyone can come in for animal-assisted therapy. It's not the animal who's getting the therapy, it's the person. And also, like getting to spend the whole day with therapy animals is like ideal. I can't imagine a better situation. So that's basically how I decided to move towards it. But it's kind of a complicated process because there's no clear degree in it. There are many small courses, and so I'm just trying to move towards what I can figure out to do, basically.
Sure. And why did you choose Flame University to pass out from?
I needed a liberal arts education because I really don't like the structured forms of like systems. So it was either Flame or Ashoka, and I didn't really want to be near Delhi. I wanted to be closer to home. And Flame has a gorgeous campus, so it was not a difficult decision to make.
Okay, great. So for the curious audiences, Nirali is in Bombay, Prerna is in Bengaluru, and Shanaz is in Kuwait right now, but in 2 days she'll be in UK. All right. So Shanaz, this one's to you, starting with you. We all have role models in our life, right? Whether we agree or we don't, both in our personal lives, and then someone that we look up to professionally as well. So this one's for all three of you, starting with Shanaz. Any role model in your personal life and someone in the professional life that you look up to?
I think in my personal life, my main role model would probably be my dad, just because he's really self-made. Honestly, he wasn't very rich, and he just really studied very hard to get to where he is right now. Also, he's always guided me to do whatever I wanted to do. He's always given me advice. He's always supported me. In that sense, I think all of my family members and my mates are like my role models, to be honest. But I think my dad would be my main role model. Professionally, I haven't exactly worked for very long. I've just done a few internships, a few placements. I think I do get really inspired with success stories that I hear about businesses. I think I remember in 2016, I was dazzled with Ben Francis, the founder of Gymshark, because I remember he was in university and he used to just sort of make the clothes in his garage, and then he gradually expanded his business, and now he sort of handles a million pound company, sorry. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. And any one global political leader that you are happy about, Shahnaz?
Sorry.
A global political leader.
Global political leader. Not really. I'm not really into politics as such, but I do admire Princess Diana because she did have a lot of responsibilities, but she always showed her humanitarian side. And yeah, I really look up to Princess Diana.
Okay, great. Nirali? You want to address that, Nirali?
Yes. Yes. So, like Shana said, there has been a lot of family support all my life, and I feel like I cannot really do anything without my family. My mother, who's always supported me through everything. There was this one time when there was this 12th standard time when I knew I wasn't doing anything in life. And look at me right now, I owe everything to her. One more person is my cousin. She's extremely opinionated and strong, and somebody who's extremely strong as a person, and I look up to that. So I think she is my role model. And when you talk about industry professionals, because I've worked at the hotels, one person that comes across to our mind is obviously Jamshedji Tata, because he revolutionized hotels for us and made Taj possible for us. Also, there was this one duty manager I came across when I was interning at Oberoi. I remember this one incident where it was pouring very badly, and there were guests who had come and they wanted to go out shopping. But there was this one time when she dealt with that guest so well that I feel I don't think I can forget that incident ever in my life. So I look up her a lot. In fact, I call her up for career advice and all of that still. Yeah, that.
Do you have any political leader that you admire?
I'm not very sure. I'm not into politics again, but just the situation right now, I feel our Prime Minister is dealing with the situation quite well. So I would say that very safely.
Okay, great. Thanks. Prerna, all yours.
Yeah, so this is kind of difficult because I've had many role models over the years from my personal life. But honestly, I think the way that I live my life mostly comes from my dad. So he's like a very fair person. Like his goal in life is to be as fair as possible. So I think that's what I've imbibed, and that's how I live my life. Whoever I deal with, whatever I'm doing, it's to be as fair as possible. Professionally, again, so my internship that I'm doing right now is the first time that I've actually gone into the field that much. And so I wouldn't say that I have one person that I look up to as a therapist, because when it comes to being a counselor or therapist, there's so many different ways you can do it, so many different types of people who are doing great things. But I do really look up to the founder of my organization. She's a really great mentor, and she's taught me a lot, even in like just the past 2.5 months. And when it comes to political leaders, I don't think I'm aware enough to know who's a good one. But I do really admire Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. She seems to be dealing with things really well. So like she's someone that I would consider a role model that way.
Okay, thank you very much for your very candid answers, all three of you. Really appreciate that. Nirali, I'm going to start with you with the next one. If you were to describe leadership in your own terms, how would you be able to describe leadership? What is leadership for you?
I feel leadership is more motivating the people you are leading, dealing with their problems, dealing with our problems, finding solutions together. And, just taking the entire team together. Teamwork is majorly important, which I have realized in life. And I think just a leader should be fair again, and should not be biased, should take everyone's opinions into consideration, and yeah, I mean, just and fair.
Okay, Prerna?
For me, leadership is about kind of similar, guidance rather than like just focusing on yourself. So it's about, like, obviously as a leader, you've taken some time to get there, you've put in a lot of effort. It's about helping other people get to the position that you're in as well, and building up their strengths as much as possible, because every single person has a strength, and that's what we should focus on more than their weaknesses. And even if they, I mean, supposed weaknesses, even if they have something that they're not that great at, you can maybe help them improve that as well. But definitely guiding the person and building people up with you.
Okay. Shano?
For me, leadership is, rightly as Nirali said, someone who motivates you, someone who understands how it is to be in your position, because a leader is always going to be someone who's been through the grill, who's been through every position. So someone who hasn't really forgotten their days as, a junior person, someone who guides the person, make sure that they don't really ridicule anyone. And yeah, just someone supportive, someone fair, like like the other two ladies said. And yeah, just someone who's motivating mainly.
Okay, great. So I'm going to come with a little googly question for all three of you. Okay. And it's in two parts. I'm going to start with Prerna first, then go to Shahnaz, and then Nirali. So you have a power. All of you have a power. Okay. I'm giving you a power to do any one most significant change in the world that you would want to. That's the power you have. The caveat is, first answer this question. Would you want to do it being invisible, or would you want to do it the way you are? Okay, so we'll go with Nirali. I think we lost Prerna. Yeah, Nirali, you take it, and then
Yeah.
we'll wait for Prerna to come back.
I do not want to be invisible. I don't think that helps.
Very good. Okay, super.
One part, I'm going to be very. So what I feel is that I have a big problem with people being judged and passing judgments. So if I have one power, I would totally remove judgments across the world. Everybody does anything they want to do, obviously lawfully, legally, right things. But just be the person you are without being worried about what people think is something I actually believe in. And I would not want that. I don't want to do that invisibly.
Good, interesting. I'm happy you said that you don't want to choose the invisible part. Good one on that. And but your choice of the power is excellent. Prerna?
So sorry, I missed the question. Can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, so I'm giving you a power. All of you have a power to use and to do whatever you want to do. One thing to change the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's one part. But before that, you got to choose whether you want to do it invisibly or you want to do it visibly. So first answer the second part.
Okay, I think for my answer, it doesn't really matter whether I'm visible or invisible.
Okay.
Because I would like to make everyone kinder, whether it's to other people or animals or just the planet, but basically just kinder to each other, because it can really change everything for you. So yeah, that would be my power.
Okay. Shahnaz, engineer?
Yeah, I think I'd like to be invisible for this one. I think if I had a power, I'd somehow try to, I don't know how, but if I could, I would try to end climate change. I would try to end poverty just somehow. I would try to end animal cruelty. I don't know, just all of this really gets me. I just try to sort of create or make a world where everything would be fair, there'd be no injustice, I don't know. I just want a world where everything's peaceful, no war, no animal cruelty, just all of that. And I want to be invisible for that, because I don't want to ever be accused of like doing it for like fame or anything like that. So yeah.
So I wouldn't have expected anything different from the way all three of you answered. And actually, when I was framing this in my mind, I actually, and I'm being very honest here, I actually did say that this one will say invisible, this will say it doesn't matter, and this one says I want to be invisible. I didn't know what you would do, but I wanted to let you know that I know you guys. I think I know you guys that way. Okay, great. So I'm going to come to a very interesting part, food. Okay, all of us in whatever fields we are, we enjoy eating food. I'm keen to know how interested are you, or do you have an opinion on fast food? Or don't have an opinion, you just like eating it, you don't care how it comes, where it comes, what happens before, after, in between, but you just love eating fast food. So any thoughts? Take your time, you can answer as much as you want to. We'll start with Nirali.
Yes, food is an extremely important part in the industry I have been in. And 3 years I have been tested on my cooking skills. I mean, imagine. So I'm not a very good chef slash cook, because it's a sin saying cook if you've done hotel management. That's why I said chef slash cook. And but I love eating. There are no two ways about it. There are people who love, various cuisines, but I'm just somebody who loves Indian food. If I see biryani in front of me, I don't think I'll look anywhere but there and just go there. I also think that food is a very good conversation starter and icebreaker. If you start talking about food, everybody eats, and it's good to talk about food. So I find it as a very good conversation starter. And yeah, I mean, I don't think we should take so much pressure about food, because it's good. It's, you eat, you enjoy, and that's how it is. And you should start going out, everybody, because the industry is going in a mess. So everybody should start going out, start going to restaurants and encouraging the industry. I hope everyone does that now. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to come in once again. I want you to let me know whether you have an opinion on fast food, like burgers, pizzas, and fries and stuff like that. Are they healthy, not healthy? Do you like it? You don't like it, or it doesn't matter?
See, I'm going to give a very cliche opinion where I'm going to say that everything in a balance is good for you and all, but there are people who love it. And if something makes you happy, you should just do it. If burger makes you happy, just have it, and then probably just go for a jog to stay healthy if that's important.
So what's your
Because it
favorite
is.
junk food?
Like I told you, I'm a very Indian food person. So I might say like Frankie with all those, that bhaiya wala Frankie with all those noodles and all that Shezwan chutney and all. I think that's right.
Okay, good. I was actually thinking that you'll say dabeli. That's your dad's favorite snack,
Yeah, that
if
is.
I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Great. Prerna, same question for you, my friend.
I'm saying this as a total hypocrite, but I don't think fast food is too good. But the main problem is that I feel that nothing tastes as good as fast food most of the time, unless you go to a really fancy, really expensive restaurant where the chefs are trained like exquisitely. Most of the time, fast food tastes best, which is why I tend to eat it way too much. So yeah, if we could make regular food taste as good as fast food, then I would totally stop eating it. So that would be a great option. Yeah.
Okay. Shahnaz?
I think if you'd asked me this question about 2 years ago, I would have said that I love fast food and I'd do anything to eat it every day. But then I had to go to university, and the only food I could actually afford as a student on a regular basis is fast food, and I'm genuinely really tired of it. But at the end of the day, I don't think someone in my position as a student can actually go to fine dining restaurants. So I do tend to eat it, even though I don't like it as much. And yeah, it's unhealthy. I mean, it's really played with my health, even in these 2 years. But yeah, I will eat it. But it's not my favorite, definitely. And I'm very bored of it, honestly. But yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll come back to this food angle in a little bit. This is just a precursor, and I have a reason why I asked you this. So I'm just whetting your appetites, if you understand. I'm going to ask you a question which is animal related now. Shahnaz, what's your favorite animal?
I think my favorite animal would be dogs, just because I've always loved dogs, and we do have dog therapy sessions in university just before exams, and they really do de-stress you, and it's just such a joy. They're just a joy to be around, honestly. And I love dogs. I love all animals, but yeah, I would have to go with dogs.
Prerna? Obvious answer, but I still want an answer.
I mean, I haven't interacted with enough animals to know if I like any others more. So it would be between dogs and cats. I'm a little scared of cats. That's the only reason I wouldn't say they're my favorite. But so it pretty much leaves me with dogs, but like they're not a bad option at all. I absolutely adore them, and the unconditional love cannot be beaten. Yeah.
Okay, Nirali?
I don't want to be judged there, but if it's dogs or cats, I feel I am very, because I've only come across probably stray dogs. I am extremely scared of them. There was this one time when this dog was on me and I was very scared. So I don't, I'm not,
So we're not, no one's judging you. Just a simple
yes,
question.
I don't think I'm neither a dog or a cat person.
What's your favorite animal? Doesn't have to be a cat or a dog.
I can't think of anything offhand right now. I will
Okay.
tell you if I think of something.
Okay, so then I'm going to stick with you, and then let's have your answer. I'm giving you the power to to own an elephant, okay, for one day. Now, what are you going to do with that elephant? This is going to come to all three of you, starting with Nirali.
With an elephant, I don't know what I'll do with an elephant.
Take your time.
I just know elephants have extremely nice memory, and
Sorry, could you speak up a little louder, please?
I just know that elephants have nice memories, and I don't know what I'll do with an elephant. But I had gone to Thailand and I'd seen these cute small elephants doing cute things. I think I'll want a small elephant with me, just to spend time with it.
Yeah, that I'll give you very soon. But right now, you tell me, what will you do with a big elephant like me if you have him for one day?
I don't know what I'll do with an elephant.
Okay, you think we'll come back to you. Shahnaz?
I'm not very sure.
Okay.
I would definitely initially like to pet it, play with it, obviously see it sort of take water in its trunk and do its thing, all of that. But I don't know, I think maybe after a couple of hours of playing and all of that, I would set it free into the wild because that's where they're meant to be. But yeah, I'm sorry, that's just my answer. That's all I can really think of.
Prerna?
Yeah, I would just try to do whatever makes the elephant happy, like feed it a lot, make it run around wherever it wants. I don't really know much about what elephants do, but just whatever makes it happy, and like that's the focus.
Okay. Nirali, did you think through?
No, I don't know. I think I like everyone said, maybe feed it, play with it, and maybe click pictures with it, post on Instagram or something.
Okay, good. So I was just having fun with all three of you, okay? There's no answer for this. There's no right, no one's getting extra points. I just thought I'll have a little fun. I've seen all of you as babies in my, with my friends and family. So I was just being the nasty little me. So sorry about that. Okay. Now, my question to all of you, the next one that's coming is what are the challenges that each of you see in your careers? Okay. And profession, let me put it that way. It's not just career, but I would actually say profession. A long-term challenge that you see today, which you want to overcome in the long run. A professional challenge. Start with you, Prerna.
I think the biggest challenge in therapy right now, I mean, more people are more open to going for therapy, which is great. But the biggest challenge is the cost of therapy, which for most people is too high. There are a few free counseling centers here and there, but it's not enough. And there aren't enough therapists in India for sure. So I think it would be reducing the cost of therapy over the long run, because it shouldn't be, it's a necessity, it's not a luxury. So it should be like affordable for every single person if they choose to go for therapy.
Okay, so I want to ask you, who chooses and who has the power to make it affordable? Isn't it the therapists who choose to make it affordable or not non-affordable?
Yeah, so the problem is, considering that there are very few therapists, they have to be very picky about how many people they can take on. So if they already have a lot of clients, they can't take on more. And then if they can't handle more than a certain number, they might have to take an amount that's higher than usual, right? So there are a lot of factors that go into it. I don't think it's fully the therapist's decision, because it's also at the end of the day a livelihood for them. So it's very, I think maybe having more therapists would maybe make it easier for it to be more affordable, but I'm not completely sure how it would happen. I don't think I know enough right now to say.
Okay, and one more question for you, Prerna, in the same line. Do you think therapists, especially in animal-assisted therapy programs across India, we're not talking the world, but across India, is this segment of professionals doing enough to let people know that they exist and that these options are available? I know that in metro cities or probably tier 1 cities, they're more popular or visible and affordable, but therapy is needed everywhere, right? So can something, any thoughts on that from your side?
Yeah, so animal assisted therapy is a very, very new thing. There's no proper established, like no one program that's universally recognized most of the time. And this is worldwide. So in India, it's very new because even therapy hadn't been accepted before. So animal assisted therapy is even newer. And there aren't many people who practice it in India. It's not very common. And I don't think many people know about them at all because I think for most people, it becomes like a Western concept. They don't understand it. They may not be taking the time to explore it, but also I think the animal assisted therapists are so few and far between that they aren't able to get the message out as far as they could, that they want to get it. So I think it's a process. It'll take a lot of time to get to that point where it's widely recognized and widely known that it even exists.
Okay, great. Thank you, Prerna. I have 3 questions or 3 comments I'm going to quickly read out before I move to you. So Kshitij Inamdar says, hello everyone, good evening. Pratibha saying hello. Nirali, this one's for you particularly. There is Chef Satish Arora in the audience. I am assuming you know who he is. Your dad definitely knows. So he's in London right now and he has been following candid conversation. So he says, I am very amused and happy to listen to Nirali's answer about food. I think she's very clear in her mind. God bless her and great success in hospitality industry. Satish Arora. Thank you, Chef.
Thank you so much, Chef. Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot.
Pratibha says, and Nishchal also. Okay, great. And everyone who's raising their hands, hello back to all of you once again. For those of you who've dropped in a little late, please put in your questions or comments in the Q&A and I will take it up with the panelists. Thank you. Nirali, same question for you.
So I'm going to talk about first the industry and then probably my personal challenges. So I think right now, like we have established that the hospitality industry isn't in a great shape. I feel that we need to, obviously bigger hotels have extremely good hygiene facilities and there's no problem. I feel that probably we are safer there than at our own houses. So yeah, taking care of the hygiene and one of the major things which I am I've been worried about, or not worried, but we've had a lot of group discussions on this, is that the computerized system, the robots taking over us as professionals. Again, like I genuinely feel that soft skills is something which cannot be taken away from anybody. I would like if somebody, some person, some human being assists me to my room than a robot. But obviously it's easier to, like book rooms through just a tap on the button and all. So I feel that are the major challenges in the industry, but I feel the industry will come back as soon as this vaccine, or probably when people will be okay to come out. For me in life, I just feel that I do not want monotony. I've said this earlier as well. I do not want to be in one place for 5 years doing the same thing and being frustrated about it, because eventually you start hating something when you do that. So I just want to be versatile, jump to industries, jump to various brands, organizations, embrace the industry, enjoy every bit of my professional life is something I aim to do in my life. So yeah, that's about it.
Good, thank you. I can't stop but smile from year to year listening to both of you and all of you in fact, and I'm delighted to see your young minds the way they are. But I must ask you this, Nirali. One question in the same thing, but I want to stretch it. That in the long term in the hospitality industry that you are, do you see a challenge? Not in the immediate future because of COVID and stuff, but a long term. Like you mentioned something about robots and stuff like that, but a little more longer than that. Do you foresee any challenge that the industry has?
Like I've told you that the challenge is basically replacing people with, because 10 years before we used to take reservations with phone calls and writing down things, and now we have a PMS system which we have to learn. So I feel the challenge of where people have to be more qualified, probably people with just, like, there was this one time when diploma was enough. Now it's a degree. I feel probably in 10 years they would need a master's degree for you to really work in a better position in the hotel. Uh, in the industry, there's also what I have realized is that experience matters more than qualifications, is what I have realized. Because somebody who's a general manager, or somebody who's the front office manager, or the executive chef, has to have an enough amount of experience. That's why probably we see the generation before us being a part of these these designations. I feel that we just need to one, that the youth needs to get a chance, and they are, with all these degrees coming up, with being more educated, being more qualified, being more aware about these things. And I feel the only challenge would be that to strike a balance between technology and soft skills, because people are required, and it is hospitality for a reason. It is called hospitality for a reason. And I think it's easy to overcome that challenge, though.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Shahnaz? What do you...
Sorry. Yeah, I think in the business industry, I think at the very moment, because of the situation of COVID, every industry is facing something, obviously, but I think the economy is really down right now, especially because we're all staying at home, and we're not going. I mean, people are afraid to go out and everything. So I do know, like, a lot of people are switching to online shopping, so stores are affected that way. So I think the bigger picture is competition, and like Nirali said, just like technology taking over, just even in terms of accounting, you might not need to be qualified anymore with the softwares coming up, just people putting in data entries and then the computer sorting it out for you. So that's a challenge that can be faced by the business industry. In terms of the COVID-19 challenge, I do think that it'll be able to be overcome in like some time, because obviously when the economy goes down, it'll come back up eventually. But yeah, I think that's competition is a challenge for the business industry in general. I think personally, a challenge for me would be just sort of getting into the rat race and just sort of differentiating between being realistic and pessimistic, because I tend to sort of have a problem with managing my stress. So it's hard to sort of not get disheartened and just keep going forward no matter what challenges are thrown at you. Sometimes you just can't deal with things, or it's just hard to stay strong, but it's a challenge which you have to overcome. And I guess you develop professionally and personally that way. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Prerna, there's a lady called Mariam Aftab. She has a question for you. She says, Prerna, seeing that you are so passionate about animal-assisted therapy, is there something at all that would do differently in India?
Yeah, so basically, animal-assisted therapy, considering that it's a new concept, hasn't been integrated in many places or used in many areas. So for me, having animal-assisted therapy in education would be a big, like, that's my goal. So making them not just having them once in a while, like once a week or something like that, but somehow creating an education system where you integrate animals into the course itself, integrate interaction with them and learning, using the learning process with them. So like one animal-assisted therapy activity that people do is teaching children how to learn words or how to learn how to read. So if you have an animal, they make you, like I went for a workshop where we had a horse and they made us write the words on the horse's fur. So things like that make you remember the words or remember what you're learning much more. So integrating animal-assisted therapy into education would be a big goal for me. Like that's something that I'm working, like I want to work towards. And that's something that I would do differently. So not just making it for mental health as a separate field, but making it as part of education and mental health.
Great, thank you. Before I move on, Chef Aurora, I will read your next point, but may I request you to come live and talk to these girls. They will be delighted to hear you, sir. I have added you. If you can come on live, sir. We can hear you, Chef.
Hello.
Hi, Chef. Can you?
Hi.
Is it possible to put is it possible to put your video on, Chef?
Satyan, I'll just say, I don't want to disturb your program.
Sure, sure.
I just want to say that I'm really very happy to listen to these young girls. And I mean, this is what is our India. This is what I feel. I'm not trying to be modest or whatever it is. But now, as far as Nirali is concerned, I understand her a lot of whatever she's saying, being in the same industry. So whatever she said, I put it down there about jumping job and all that, which you can tell her later on. But I'm very happy and very, very interested to know what Prerna is doing, because this is the first time I heard about the animal therapy, assistant therapy. I mean, I'm really very happy to see a brave girl like that choosing such career. And as far as Shehnaz Madam is concerned, I think good luck to her. And finance is a difficult part, for me at least. And I think she will get more success in that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chef. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chef. Thanks.
God bless you all. And I really mean what I said.
Thank you, Chef. I'll just read out what you wrote so that everyone hears it as well, and then we'll move on. So, Nirali, Chef says, Nirali, a small advice. If you like that, please do not jump from one working place to another, as mentioned. I have spent 50 years at the Taj. It helped and made me what I am today in the industry. Just a thought, choice is yours, Satish Arora. For all of you who are not from the industry, Chef Arora is our industry guru. He's been with in the industry. He's currently at London. And thank you, Chef, for your blessings. And thank you. I'm sure all these girls need your blessings. And thank you for coming on board and speaking with us. Thank you so much, Chef.
Thank you,
Thank
Satyan.
you,
God
Chef.
bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So, sorry. Okay. Great. Lovely. So good challenges you all have in finance and animal therapy and hospitality. That's nice. So Prerna, you want to talk to us a little bit more about animal therapy. Okay, like Chef said, he's and there are a lot of others who sending me a message saying if you could talk a little bit more about what exactly does animal therapy mean, and how does one go about doing that? Is it for sick people? Is it not for sick people, etc.? Just a little bit to talk on that, please.
Yeah. So, like therapy itself, therapy, you don't have to be mentally ill to get therapy. You can get therapy at any point of time if you choose to do it. It's just about helping yourself get through your life in the best way possible. So the same way, animal-assisted therapy is just integrating animals into that same process. So a therapist is not supposed to give you all the answers. They're just supposed to help you find the answers yourself. And in animal-assisted therapy, it makes it easier. So the presence of an animal for a lot of people makes it easier for them to open up, be vulnerable. And they often find a connection stronger with the animal rather than the therapist. Like they open up easier to the animal and then open up to the therapist. So that's a big part of it. That's like it actually started by chance because a therapist was conducting the session and they noticed that their dog was able to get the child to open up much more than they were able to with their questions. So that's pretty much how it started. And animal assisted therapy would be, so the sessions will be centered sometimes around the interactions you have with the animal. So for example, if it's a dog, there might be sessions where, so there's a goal for each session that you have in animal assisted therapy. So if the goal is teaching a dyslexic child how to read, so then the child would maybe, for example, be made to sit in front of with the dog, and they'll be given certain words. So they'll be given a, so dyslexic children often have a problem with spelling. So they'll be given a word and given the spelling and asked to draw that word in the fur of the animal, so in the fur of the dog. So that often the sensory aspect of it makes people remember it much more. And it's a unique experience also because the dog provides a non-judgmental environment. Because the therapy, the main point of animal assisted therapy is, which is something that therapists are also supposed to do, is provide unconditional positive regard. When it comes from an animal, it's much more pure and much more obvious. It takes people time to trust each other. So with animals, you don't have any doubts about what they actually feel about you. So that's where it comes from. So for a dyslexic child, especially if they faced a lot of, like many people have made fun of them or bullied them about their dyslexia, having this animal that is completely non-judgmental, does not, their opinion of them does not depend on whether they can read properly or not, would help them learn how to read much better. Yeah, that's the basic idea behind it, but there are many different ways that it can be integrated.
Thank you, Prerna. I have a question. Whatever little I know of animal therapy, whatever I have seen and whatever I've experienced, they're mainly dogs that are used, canines are used, or at least they're visible. I'm sure there are other animals used, but canines are most used. Is there a reason behind that?
I think it's mainly because we're more in touch with dogs than any other animals. So it's not often that, and even like, for example, horses are used really often, but for that you need an open space. You need a certain amount of space for the horse to be able to, like, for you to be able to have the session with the horse. Whereas with dogs, you have dogs of different sizes, dogs of different, like short fur, long fur, all of that. So you can choose the right dog for the right place. Whereas with other animals, you would have to choose the place according to the animal. So I think that's the main reason. Plus dogs generally, from what we've seen mostly, and this is not always true. I mean, cats can also be very friendly, can also be very open. But most people believe that dogs are very friendly, much more open, and much more interested in interacting with human beings. But a lot of this is based on temperament testing also. For any animal to be certified as a therapy animal, their temperament needs to be right, because you cannot have an animal that will bite you suddenly or get flustered or bothered by someone touching the wrong part of their body. So there's a long process for an animal to be certified as a therapy animal. But you commonly see dogs because they're easier to take around and they're more, people are more familiar with them also. Like Nirali, for example, you haven't met many dogs, but you still interacted with stray dogs on the road. Like, it's not like you've never seen a dog or never met a dog before, right? So that's the main reason I think behind it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Shahnaz?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me, Shahnaz?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
okay,
can.
okay, great. So I want to ask you, finance, accounting, taxation was very different 10, 12 years ago, or probably 15 years ago. There's a new methodology that's happening right now. There's going to be a new methodology that's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years as well. The economies are evolving. So I want to ask you, besides a degree or a certificate and a professional degree, what does an accounting student need to do to sell him or herself to get a good job in today's times? What other
I think
qualities? Yeah, what other qualities would be? Yeah.
I think in today's time, like you said, I don't think it's exactly a degree or a certificate or what you need. It's mainly experience. I would definitely say you should take experience in a big firm, you should take experience in a small firm so you know how different firms work. Even in a big firm, if you've got different types of clients, I think the experience is important because you've got a client, say in retail, you've got a client, say in investment. So it's important to sort of know how every industry works. It's not just like a certificate that you need. You definitely need to know more about all sorts of industries. I would definitely say, I think in today's world, you need to do a lot of your own reading. You need to sort of know what's going on around the world. You need to see which industries are booming, which industries are sort of going down. You need to just be aware of everything, especially if you're in a particular industry. You need to see your competitors. You need to always try to sort of one up them. So in that sense, I think reading is very important. Also, just in terms of selling yourself as an accountant or a finance professional, you need to sort of have some amount of I think people skills, just to sort of like convince your client or whoever you're dealing with that you are the right person. Just sort of, you should know how to talk as well. So in that sense, again, I think that comes with experience. You see your seniors talking to people, you see your seniors working, you see your seniors convincing. So I think everything boils down to experience and reading. It's not just a certificate, but definitely I think having a certificate of a higher caliber will sort of give you a start somewhere. You know, it's always like, because in professional qualifications, they do grill you a bit more than just normal qualifications. So I think when an employer or a client or anyone sees that professional certificate, they just know that, yeah, you're definitely been through the grill, you're worth taking a chance on. But yeah.
Okay, so in the last couple of months, I would say last 2 quarters, okay, 6 months, if I may say so, you being a finance student, do you pay attention to the global economies, news, and
I do actually. I do. I do. I have, especially, I think, right now, since I am in the United Kingdom, I do pay attention to how the economy is in the United Kingdom. And I did read that in the previous 2 quarters, it's been an ultimate all-time low, the currency and just the GDP in general right now. But obviously, we do understand that's because of what's going on right now. It's because of COVID-19. The economy is going to be down. I do some reading about India and everything, and just all countries in general, just to compare how countries are dealing with challenges. Obviously, right now, in the COVID-19 situation, but in general, how they deal with problems. I did read also, I think New Zealand, because they handled the situation really well, their economy hasn't gone down as much. So I think in comparison, as to my knowledge, New Zealand is doing quite well. But yeah, I think it is really important to sort of keep in touch and just be aware of how the world is right now in terms of just the economy in general, no matter where you are in the world, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. But that wasn't my question. My question was leading to that. That you know, as a finance student, don't worry. It's a good perspective that you give. You know, as a finance student, you are obviously paying attention to the global economies in some way or the other, right? Do you have an opinion, Shanaz, of you as an individual, as a finance professional, if I may use that word, or a student? How long will it take for the economies to bounce back? Just a ballpark figure, in your personal opinion.
I think my personal opinion is based solely on sort of past problems that have happened before. So obviously, you could say that when the Great Depression hit, it took approximately 10 years to sort of come back into the economy. I don't think this is as big as the Great Depression. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not a professional. I'm still a student, but I would hope that the economy of different countries would be able to bounce back within the next 3-4 years, 2-3 years. I don't think it's as big of a problem as past challenges that have happened to the world, but it is still, I think, a prominent problem. It has hit economies really bad. I think you never know, some industries might not actually be able to bounce back because like I said earlier, I think once you've really had a taste of online shopping and just anything sort of doing stuff online, you might actually just like it. You know, if you think about offices, because their income is obviously lower right now, they try to cut wherever they can just to sort of save money. They might just think that, oh wait, we actually don't need so many buildings. We might just keep one building and make people work from home 2 days, and the other 3 days they do come to work. So then in that sense, it's alternative. So then that could really hit the real estate industry, you know. And if they do like it that way and they do think it's an efficient way of saving money, then they might just be hit forever. You don't know. But I think hopefully 2-3 years the economy should rise back up.
You said 3 years.
2 or 3 years. I don't know. I'm not
No,
sure.
okay. I didn't hear you properly. That's why I asked you. So 3 years is fine. Okay, great. Thank you. Nirali, I'm going to come to you with a little hospitality-related question. You said you aspire to be a general manager of a 5-star hotel company. Let's assume you were today. Okay, let's assume you were, and if I may just use just for the namesake, you're the GM at the Taj Mahal Hotel or the Taj Group of Hotels, or any one of the property. As a leader, what would have been your first priority at a time like this?
At a time like this, like I mentioned earlier, we should take hygiene extremely seriously. We should take hygiene extremely seriously at this point, because that's where all of us are facing the problem. At home, we want to come home, wash our hands 10 times. Even if we touch the railing, we want to sanitize our hands. So, taking care of these things will make, will just want people would want to come to you if you are hygienic. The same thing, I personally know a lot of people, probably because I'm in the industry, or in general, people craving for food from the various outlets, or just in general, junk food from outside. Making that hygienic, showing people that you really care about their hygiene, and that if you come there, you are not prone to probably the virus, which is not which is very hypothetical at this point, because we really don't know. But what I mean is to give the main aim of hospitality is to give guests a comfortable experience. But now that the pandemic has hit us so bad, and the industry as well, I feel the most important thing, the first thing I would do is probably maybe hire more people for the housekeeping department. Keep on sanitizing the hotel, taking care of the hygiene. And like I told you, that I believe that there has to be human interaction. So I would want to do I would really want, probably get kiosks to get our room cards and all, but probably just do something where, one person at a time and the live, but there is just some human interaction in some way, where it's not like leaving the breakfast out in the morning, but probably when you open the door, there's somebody who greets you, wishes you, and then can carry on with the day. I feel that could just change somebody's day. So smaller changes in life, using technology, and hygiene being the very important part, is what I would want to do right now.
Sure, great. So I want to ask you one more question. I'm sure you're aware that a lot of hotel chains during these last couple of months have started home delivery. They're offering their restaurant food in a pre-packaged format. They're selling it to guests and consumers who are happy to buy them. Okay, they never thought of this before. Because of the fact that they were very happy with guests coming into their hotels, consuming food and beverage in their restaurants and stuff like that. But now they're finding this as an option to reach out. In your opinion, do you think it's a smart move, or is it just an opportunist move? And is it going to is it going to last long, or it'll stop once everything's normal?
Like I keep saying, getting packaged food at home, opening it and having it, even if you heat it in the microwave or whatever, does not give you the same experience as some waiters coming and serving it to you with all the SOPs, with all the wine serving procedures and all. It is just an experience more than anything else. Going to a restaurant and having dinner is an experience. But right now, it totally makes sense to at least get 25% of the experience by at least eating what they provide. But I feel that when the hotels are back on track and when the world is back on track, I feel people, or I in general, would rather going to a restaurant and experiencing the entire magic.
Okay, great. Thank you. Shanas,
Yeah.
okay, I want to ask you, what's the color of money?
The color of money. I think it's different in all countries, obviously. Obviously, if you go down to like the absolute basics, it's obviously trees, so brown. But I think the notes in every country is different. So I guess you should ask me which country you want to know.
Okay, no, the reason I'm asking you this is that if you had the power to choose one color as the universal currency color, what color would you choose? For every country, one color.
As in the same color for all countries. Um, Maybe green, just because that's what I'm most familiar with. That's what they really show on the internet all the time. They just show like the dollars all the time. So maybe green.
So that you know the reason why money is called the color of money is green, as a statement, is related to that. Okay, but why green? You like green? Is it a favorite color?
Oh no, absolutely not. I just associate money to green for some reason. Actually, I don't really know why, but I just do.
Okay, good. Prerna, coming to you, what's been the most difficult decision you've taken in your life?
I don't know. Um, I would have to think about that a little bit though.
Okay, so have you experienced? Let me put it in a different way. In your recent study or being a part of the therapy and learning, the internship, has there been a difficult moment that you've come across?
Mm, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be part of this internship, but before I started even like my course or my internship, when I was still in college, I was terrified of the fact that I might not actually like what I'm planning to do, because I've been interested in psychology since I was 13. So after that, I haven't really thought about anything else. But then thinking about the fact that I might not actually like what I'm going to do was really scary for me. So I think the most difficult decision in that would be just diving headfirst in, like knowing that I was terrified that I might not like it, but still continuing to do it in any way. I think that was the most difficult decision that I can think of right now.
Okay, and Nirali, this one's coming to you. If you had a choice of choosing one guest to invite in your house, who would that guest be? It could be a family, it could be someone from anywhere in the world. One guest of your choice that you want to host at your house.
Only one. I would want because I'm missing so many people right now and not meeting so many. I would say my sister or my best friend, somebody who I can spend time with, because it's been 6 months we've not met.
Okay, good. So I'm going to move to the couple of questions that are there. A lot of comments, so I'm kind of quickly reading them. One second, give me a sec, guys. Crystal Rocha says, Nirali, well done, so proud of you. He again says, Niru, proud of you. Mr. Vyas, thank you. This is the way I am. Prerna, okay, we answered that. Pratik Shastri says, hi Prerna, do you think introducing psychology into non-humanities school curriculums will help removing the counseling taboo in India?
I definitely do think so. Not just like, I think integrating psychology at a much earlier stage, making people understand how their mind works, how mental health works, would make a huge difference. Like not making it so late in the process and not making it a choice. Because the same way we have biology, physics, and any other science when we're younger, or even history for that matter, I think psychology is like much, much more basic than that, because every single person has a mind, and I mean, all human beings function in a certain way, though they have their own unique like abilities and their own unique aspects. So integrating psychology into the curriculum even way before you choose between humanities and science would make a huge difference, because if you if you give them a proper understanding of what mental health is, then they know that it doesn't matter what they're actually doing. When they need help, they should go get help. I mean, people go to the doctor all the time. It should be that common to go to a therapist.
Okay.
But also affordability and accessibility is another problem that comes up.
Okay, great, thanks. So Anuradha Venkatesh, for your earlier comment, not this one, has mentioned that's brilliant, Prerna. We spoke about, okay, there she has one more question which says, I love the idea of animal-assisted therapy in education. How about, how would you set about convincing a skeptical school principal about its efficacy?
I think the only way to do that would be to give them the case studies that have been done before, or make them have a demo session or conduct a demo session in front of them live and see the difference. Because even a lot of times, even in the first session that a child has with, when it comes to schools, when a child is antisocial or is uncomfortable interacting with people or not able to express themselves, I've seen it firsthand how they immediately start expressing themselves with animals. So maybe conducting a demo session or giving them case studies, because a lot of people prefer being convinced by science. So giving them the scientific facts and figures about it, I think would be the best way to go about it.
Okay. Nirali, this one's for you from, again, Anuradha Venkatesh. She says, how do you think the hospitality industry will change post-COVID in terms of customer experience and expectations? Quickly, if you could answer that in your timelines, please.
Yes. I think the hotel industry should not change the fact that customer experience is their priority and not get swayed away by all the changes that come across. Because a lot of things which the SOPs have come, and probably we can assume that in a restaurant we would, instead of 2 people sitting, we would have just 15 or 25 probably. So I think, yes, the social distancing might never go away. People being scared might never go away. But the fact that the hospitality industry is on the grounds of customer experience, I think that should not go away. That is the principle which should stay, and probably change their way of doing things for the customers. But I feel like I'm saying that quite often now, but customer experience should just be the major criteria which they should take care of.
Right. Thank you, Nirali. Well answered. Anuradha ji, if I may just interject here. So in the hospitality industry, particularly in India, there are lots of rules and regulations that the government and the associated bodies have come out with. There are more restrictions, they're more restrictive, and there's still no clarity as to when can they open. Delhi's just opened up a couple of days ago, but there are no people going there. So both for hotels and restaurants, there are rules and regulations. Because of the disruption in the customer service experience, a lot of hotel brands, hotel managements have chosen not to start. Some obviously have, some have chosen not to. But it's a wait and watch as we speak even right now. And we just hope that, as rightly Nirali said, unless people start traveling and going out, things are not going to move. No, it's like a whole cycle. Nothing's going to move. So hopefully all will be fine soon. There's a question from Hetis Majmudar, he's Nirali's dad, and he's asking all three of you, how do you make a decision? Is it through your mind or through your heart? We'll start with Shahnaaz.
I need to think my decisions through. So I'm gonna have to go with mind, because I just feel like sometimes if you make a decision with your heart, it might just be a rash decision, which might sort of not be the best thing in the long run. So I definitely try to take calculated decisions, and yeah. So I'm gonna have to say mind.
Prerna?
I think it's a combination of both for me, because I'd like to think things through, but at the end of the day, if I'm not passionate about whatever the decision is, even if it's a small one, I don't like making a decision without thinking about whether I actually care about it. So it would be both.
Nirali, family question?
My answer is very similar to Prerna's. I would like to take a decision, like a calculative decision, like she said, through my mind. But I feel that I usually want to know if I'll be satisfied in the longer run and if I'll be happy with it, because I do not like to regret my decisions. So it again would be a combination of both. If it makes sense, I would want to go ahead with it emotionally and practically.
Okay, great. And I want to weave in my last point here, okay, very quickly for all three of you, and it's going to be common. And we could use this as our closing comments also. Okay. In the near future, all of you are at an excellent stage where you're at a threshold and you're moving into the leaders of tomorrow. And it's not a reason that I put the topic as such. I truly believe that the youth today are the leaders of tomorrow. Okay. If you were to look at that analogy and you move on, if you had the power, say 5 years down the line, when you were a leader, I'm just taking 5 years as an example. Okay. What is it that you would want to change in your working style, in your industry that you're seeing right now, which probably is unfair or you're not happy about? Prerna, you want to start with you?
I think it would be, I mean, this goes back to the power question you had asked, what would be our power thing? I've noticed that no matter what workspace you work in, there's not much space because people get stressed, people have a difficult time going on outside of work and all of that. So finding a way that people are comfortable enough in your organization that no matter what is happening in their lives, they are able to be kind to each other because they know that they are also being taken care of. So knowing that you're cared about and that no matter what's happening with you, you have like a team who supports you and a team and a leader who supports you and who is there for you. I think that's what matters most, because a lot of times even your work can get emotional, and it's not fair that like people try to keep their lives separate. They try to have a balance between their work and their home and all of that, but at the end of the day, you're just one person. Everything for you is together. So finding a way that people building an organization or being a leader that allows whoever is working with you to manage their lives, like enabling them to manage their lives in a better way, I think that's something that I would want to do.
Thank you. Nirali, your thoughts on this?
I am I'm extremely, whatever Prerna said is something I agree with. And I'm happy that you say that 5 years hence, you think we are the future and we are the leaders. One thing which is very industry specific is I have, while I've given interviews and gone through the entire process, I just see a lot of judgment and objectification in a way, because if you do not look a certain way, you cannot be a part of this profession. It is a very common thing. I don't know if I should be saying this, but it is a very common saying that women cannot be chefs, or it is better to see women in a sari than on the gate to welcome you than a man welcoming you in a suit. I mean, these are a few things which I would want to change. It is not gender specific, but it just comes across in a way. I have seen going to interviews, just people not being taken seriously because of a way they speak, because of the way they look. And I just feel that giving talent a bigger, giving it more importance is something which I would want to do if I hopefully become a leader someday. And like Prerna said, kindness and leadership, and just knowing that you have your team which is giving you support is something which I would want to imbibe in my team in the future.
Sure. Thank you. And just for all that you said, I have in the coming weeks a couple of sessions with chefs and hospitality people. I have one with human relations, very, very senior people, learning and development people. Please, if you are free and if it resonates with you, Nirali, log in and join. Some of those questions are going to be thrown at them rightly, they're already in my bank, and you can come in as a participant and throw questions at them. It'll be my pleasure. Okay.
For sure. I would
Shahnaz,
definitely be there.
Shahnaz, your comments on the same point?
Um, I don't think there's anything major that I'd want to change, but like the other two ladies did say, I think it is important that your work environment isn't very toxic. So even sometimes if the leader is really great, sometimes the colleagues themselves could be quite rude to you just because you're a bit younger or something, or you're not as experienced, or you might come from a different background or whatever. So if I do become a leader, I think the one thing I would want to implement is maybe just training for every single employee as to how to deal with your colleagues, just sort of try to change the mindset, just no preconceptions of any sort. Everyone's your equal, because like I said, even though leaders might be great, you never know how the colleagues are, how the subordinates are. So I think human resources would have to play a massive role in that, to be honest, just develop training programs. So I'm really looking forward to your session on that. But yeah, that's what I think as of now I'd sort of want to do as a leader, just implement training programs and all of that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Nirali, Chef Arora is saying that in his kitchens, he had more than 30 lady chefs in the group. They are no less than men, Satish Arora. So
I'm
there
so
you have
glad.
it.
I'm so glad.
So there you have it. So yeah, thank you, Chef, for bringing that up. I probably missed telling you, maybe your experiences in certain brands or groups has not been so great, but not every hotel. So there are enough lady chefs across. But you're right that it's a preconceived notion
Yeah, it's
that
a preconceived notion. That's exactly what I meant. That,
yeah.
when you are sitting for interviews and when you're about to get in the industry, there are a few things people usually talk about. And I just don't want
That's
it.
the
I don't
judgmental.
even, yeah, correct. I don't even want that anybody to even have such an opinion about things.
Good. So I'm extremely positive that in the very near future, when you are one of the power leaders in this industry, you will be making a lot of change, and we will be there backing you up in whatever way we can. A lot of lovely comments for everyone, but I'll quickly take a few. Anuradha Venkatesh says, well said. Nirali Pratibha says, absolutely, we agree. These are on various points. I'm just picking them up. Mariam says, so happy to see that you are genuinely so passionate about mental health, Prerna. Anuradha says, that's a really mature point of view, Prerna. And last comment, again from Anuradha, for all three of you, these young people give me hope. They are better than the panelists on most national programs. Yay! 3 cheers for 3 of you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you so much.
last question, thank you, Anuradha ji. Shahnaz, wouldn't you say that this kind of training should start in schools and homes? This is her last question that I'm taking for everyone. Shahnaz, Anuradha says, wouldn't you say that this kind of training should start in schools and homes? That was towards your last comment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a really great point, because I think all of our preconceived notions sort of is embedded in us as we're children. So that's a really great point. Actually, I completely agree with that. It should definitely take place in schooling. Absolutely. I just meant like when I'm a leader, I would still have those sort of programs while I'm at work, just in case it hasn't happened in schooling. You never know. So yeah. Thanks
Good.
for the question.
But the very fact that you are thinking about it and that you want to involve it whenever in a professional journey, that's obviously the fact that you see that there's a lacuna right now, and that's exactly what Ms. Venkatesh is also saying the same thing. So great. I've had a fantastic second session with all of you. Thank you so much. You've
Thanks
made
for having us.
this brilliant conversation, and I'm delighted to have all of you here. Have a lovely evening. If there's anything any one of you want to say as a closing comment, this is the time.
Just thank you to you for having us and also doing such a event kind of thing, like having these candid conversations. It's really cool to listen to people, and probably in a way that you wouldn't hear them speak unless you actually met them. So I really like what you're doing here.
I would also like to say that I learned so much from you, and for 2 new industries. I learned so much about 2 new industries. I also got to interact with so many other people, and I'm so glad you're doing this. And I would want to meet you very soon, all of you.
I just want to say thanks as well. Thanks for having me. I think, your Candid Conversation episodes are really insightful. I just learned so much. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Okay, thank you. And thank you everyone for showering your compliments on the panelists. I am restricting what you're writing for me, but thank you very much. I am delighted. Keep coming back. Thursday is the next one, 5 p.m. You'll find the details on the social media under Satyen Dasondi. Till then, stay safe. Have a lovely day ahead and good night, all of you. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye.